is our galaxy. And we live in the suburbs of the galaxy on this little tiny star that would be too faint to even see on this chart. And we're on a little planet, this little speck moving around this tiny little star in our galaxy. Welcome. Okay, this is a picture of me when I was in the Black Room. Actually, it was the day I came out of the Black Room after spending 13 months meditating alone in darkness, and this was the day that I came out. When I first crossed the border of India, it was January 14th, I think, 1968. And I had 50 cents in my pocket and no way of getting back. I'd just taken a train across Pakistan, and that night someone stole my boots and my winter coat. It was still wintertime, it was pretty cold, but I just had the clothes on my back and the 50 cents in my pocket, no way of getting back. So when I walked across the border, within, well, to make a long story short, within about half an hour I'd met some people and they were walking me through this small town called Firozpur on the border between Lahore in Pakistan and Firozpur on the Indian side. I had to go through this demilitarized zone. And within half an hour I met this man, walked up to me and asked me why I'd come to India, and I had told him I was looking for a spiritual teacher and some guidance, and his name was Mani Baba, and he had just spent 1 year sitting alone in the Black Room. And when I said I was looking for spiritual things, a spiritual teacher, he started telling me about this. And the basic idea of these rooms was that before you can learn anything on the spiritual path, you have to unlearn everything you think you know. And that's the first idea. The second idea was the thoughts that come into your mind when you're alone. That's your karma. So how do you change the thoughts that come into your mind when you're alone? These meditation rooms were set up to go be alone, sit in the darkness, and just be alone, and you could chant. You're supposed to be remembering God's name and being alone with your imagination and trying to keep centered and come to terms with your own inner being and inner truth, while your mind and all your senses are screaming to get out of here, do this, do that, and you're trying to get the experience of silence or the experience of being alone and coming to terms with yourself. Well, the idea fascinated me and it captivated me, and I said I'd be interested in trying it if it was possible. And Mani Baba and Sham Gupta, a friend, they had arranged for me to go into one of these little rooms that they had set up in Firozpur. And I went into this room and I spent 11 days in the room. This was my first time in the Black Room. And after coming out, now I'd been alone on a mountaintop, I'd been alone by the ocean, I'd been alone in the woods, I'd been alone in a lot of places in nature for periods of time, but I'd never been alone like that. So I went into this room and I did my chanting. I brought a little bit of spiritual reading with me. And when I came out after 11 days, I just felt I had to go further, that I touched something. I didn't know what it was, I didn't understand it, I just knew I'd opened the door to something and I had to go further. And so I came out and stayed with Mani Baba for a little while longer, and we talked, and he arranged some funding for me and called his guru in Surat in Gujarat and arranged to send me down there and for me to go into a room in Surat and to try a longer stay at meditation, being closer to the Guru Mota Maharaj, who started these ashrams. These were rooms, little rooms that were set up as like caves, but with a bathroom added to it, and food could be sent in, so that a person in our modern society could go in and have the silence without having to go be so totally deprived that you're in a cave and dealing with other hardships. So this was the main idea of it, of just getting the experience of silence. But I was sent down. One of the main things was you'd go in, and when you're on the ashram, you're only on the ashram to be in the Black Room. There was a few people that ran it, but it wasn't like a whole community I think it's a fairly quiet thing. So you go on the ashram, and the next day, that day or the next day, you go in the black room and you meet the guru before, and you go in the room and you spend your time in there. And when you come out, you've got to go on to the next thing, because nobody's staying. You have to go, whatever you learn on the inside, you have to go put to the test of life. And people are sent right back to their own environments to deal with the conclusions they may have come from being alone. So it really wasn't something that was fostering a cult, or you have to be part of this group or not. It was more, here's the challenge, see how much you can deal with it. So I was sent down to Surat, which is in Gujarat state, it's west of Bombay. I met Mota Maharaj, my guru, and he was the person who set up all these rooms and had worked on it. It's made the original black room started in Mahatma Gandhi's ashram when he first came from South Africa to India, and he had the Harijan ashram, and they started the first black room was originated there, and that's the history of these rooms. I went into a room in Surat, and they had some 14 rooms there, and people were in all of them. And I went into this one room, and when I came out, I'd spent 3 months in this room. I went in, and I came out, and it was 3 months had gone by, and I went from about 130 pounds to about 65 pounds when I came out. So I lost the weight so fast, the skin was still just hanging on my bone. It wasn't that they weren't taking care of me or that the food was being sent into the room. But when you go into a room like that, it's a really simple thing going into be alone in a room. You just have yourself to walk around the room to chant. You go into the bathroom, you're sleeping a bit, you're getting up and you're chanting and you're meditating. So it's really a simple thing. But your body rate slows down when you're in this room. And you're breathing slower, everything happens a little bit slower. So I was, as my body slowed down, I had trouble digesting and I didn't feel like eating much. So they would send food and I might have a little nibble and I'd mess it up, and I didn't really eat very much. So it was my own, I'd done some fasting previously, and so it was sort of one of my own little things. I stopped eating very much, but I always messed up the food to make it look I was eating more. But I probably got as close to the edge of being here or not being here as I could have been at that time. So I came out after the 3 months, and I don't know how to describe it. I was feeling great. Everybody thought a wind was going to blow me over. I felt great because I survived, and I got through, got in touch with some things in myself, and say being in a black room that every 21 days or so is the equivalent of a death and a rebirth. That in 21 days being alone, it's as if you've gone through the changes of consciousness that you would have if you died and been born again. After spending that much time in, it's as if you'd gone through several lifetimes and you're coming back looking at the world again. And one of the interesting things of the black room is, it's one thing being simply alone and trying to maintain your own meditation. It was mostly a chanting, and the chant, my chant was Hari Om. I would go in and chant Hari Om. Sometimes I'd throw in other names and other hymns and stuff like that, but I basically chanted that. But when you come out, all your thoughts are, when you're in the room, all your thoughts are just staying there. They're not going out to watch this going by. You're not watching time things. You're not watching what other people are doing. So your mind gets really simple in what you're doing. And when you come out, in one day, you almost go through the number of changes of consciousness that you would have gone through in that 3 months before. It's like they accumulate, and it isn't relating to time. So when you come out, you're seeing things really speed at an altered state of consciousness that I don't know how to explain it. You have to do it to see it. But because I'd lost so much weight, I came out, I wanted to go back in the room again right away. But because I'd lost the weight, they said I needed to stay out for about a month and put some food, put some weight on and stuff before I tried it again. And in that time, there was a newspaper man that came and interviewed me. He wanted to do an interview, and they did an article for the Madras. No, that wasn't the Madras paper. That was in Surat, for the Surat paper. And after that, they arranged for me, if I wanted to go to another room, to go to South India, in Tamil, a place called Kumbakonam, which is south of Madras, down near the southern tip of India on the Kaveri River. And so I was out the month, and then I took the train across India, and they sent me there, and they arranged to fix up this room that had only been used once or twice before. They fixed it all up, and I arrived, and I was able to go into this room where I was going to do a longer term if I could. In southern India, I went into the black room. This is the third time. The first time was 11 days. The second time was about 98 days. And this time I went into the room. I really wasn't planning on coming out. I was just going in. I was like ready to die if something didn't change inside. Because I felt most of my problems were inside, not outside. And that I had to resolve something in myself before I came out. So I figured there's no better place to do this but here, and here I am. And so I went into the room, and I'd spent a long time in there. And when I came out, I thought I'd spent about 6 months in this room. But when I came out, I found out I'd spent 13 months in the black room. And that's longer than you spend in your mother. So there's no, how do you measure something like that? You know, what'd you do for 13 months? Well, I sat in a room and was alone. It's not like it means anything to anybody. But it was a process of refinement, of getting more sensitive to thought process, to emotional processes. It's a very simple thing when you go in the room. When first you go in, every thought comes in, tells you why you should get out of there. Every feeling, why you should get out of there. And you have to ask yourself, do you listen to the thoughts of why you should get out, or do you trust God? Or do you trust something inside? So that's the first battle in learning that. And then, as the months go by, your mind goes over every thought you've ever had in your life. And it goes around over everybody you know, every thought. It goes again and again around everything until you almost get tired of looking at the same old stories again and again until you've repeated it enough times while you're chanting. So then, after a while, you get tired of thinking of all these sequences, and then you start watching the feelings behind the thoughts and the emotions you have during these thoughts. So then you go over to every emotions you've ever had in your life, and you go around that a number of times till you get bored watching all the old history of all the emotions. And that brings you back into the moment again, and you're still chanting, and it takes you to deeper cycles. And but it's simple. I mean, it's so simple to just sit in a room and be chanting and walk around. You eat, you sleep, and you don't have to interact. But it's hard to restore our sense of simplicity in life. We get so attached. We have trouble restoring our innocence or our simplicity. In a way, that's kind of the process, some of the processes that go on when you're being alone like that. But in the history of the rooms, this was a little radical, because nobody other than Mani Baba had ever spent more than 3 months in a room. I knew Mani Baba had spent 1 year. This was 13 months, and it hadn't been really heard of. It didn't really mean anything to me. There was a lot of things happened. That's a whole year and a bit in this room, and during there I had different infections and things happened. And do you come out from the infections or don't you? At one point I was getting these boils that would build up on my fingers, and then it was like blood poisoning going up my hand, and then I'd break open the boil and push the poison back out. You're just alone. When you're alone, you have to live with pain and deal with it. So, and I was chanting, and at one point, the whole tip of this finger fell off in the room, and then over the course of 13 months, it grew back in. So you can still see I don't have a ball on my finger there. But to me, this is like a constant reminder of miracles in life, because it wasn't there at all and it grew back. You know, even the whole fingernail was gone and it all grew back. So it's not that I didn't have my challenges being in the room. You do go through your challenges. It's just I was under the guidance of a very spiritual man, and I was sincerely searching inwardly, and things brought me through there. There's a certain point, in a way, the pain kind of forces your consciousness to go even higher. What else happened in the room? Once somebody tried to steal me. They thought I was an idol in this temple, and in the middle of the night, someone tried to open this door. Like, I'm in this little closed room. It's about 14 by 20, with a bed in the center, and there's a double door. Food goes in one side, I close it, then I open it, take the food in. So I don't see anyone, I don't have any contact with anyone. Well, in the middle of one night, somebody snuck up and was trying to break in, and they opened this door, and they pushed open the inside door, and they tried to put a flashlight in because they're looking for the idol to steal it. Well, I just sort of kind of came out of my meditation, said Om, and went up and slammed the door shut, and probably scared the heck out of this crook. So like as if the idol came alive, and they just took off. That was the funny little vignette that happened of being disturbed by outer things. But that was a really rare thing. Probably when I made my decision to come out of the room was probably when they landed on the moon. And then I made my decision to come out, and within a couple of weeks I was out. But it was sort of coincidence because my brother's name is Neil Armstrong. It's not the same person. But I came out of the room at that time, and I was in a very altered state. After being in blackness and darkness for 13 months, I could come out and sit in the hot, sunny day. I was like a little baby. Anybody I looked at, I remember for the first week, anybody I looked at had this golden aura all around them for about six feet around them. Then after a week or so, that sort of started to change. It came down to be more of a silver aura, and then it wasn't there quite. I don't see it like that anymore. But I used to be able to, some people wanted to come and meet this person that spent this time in the room, and I was just sitting there like a kid. I'd probably be embarrassed to see any of that now. But I used to sit just in the sand like I was a baby playing with sand through my hands, and I used to be able to look at the sun for hours without even blinking. I came out of the black room, I could just sit up, look at the sun, not even blink. I don't know how to describe it. It just was something that happened in that altered state coming out of the room. There's a lot of stories of re-entry, but probably the people in the ashram were very great devotees and very wise people, and they kind of knew how to buffer me, because you have to come out of your own, when you're alone, you're kind of perfect in your own imagination. As you come out, you have to run across everybody else's desires and imperfections, and your own are dealing with passions and things that you normally wouldn't have to deal with. So it does take some reorientation, decompression you might call it. But so I'd spend about a month or 2 or 3 weeks on the ashram there, and then I did a little bit of traveling for about a month. I went around, met different mystical people. I went to the Aurobindo ashram, met the Pondicherry mother, and this was just when they were just starting the building of Auroville. And I went to Tiruvannamalai and to the Ramana ashram. Went around to meet a number of sort of mystical people. And after a certain point, something made me decide I had to go back into the room again.